I don't say it's not a critical path, but in our world, that is the path of least resistance, I would say. So a government credit card is like a path of least resistance. There is less regulatory stuff that you got to go through, right? Less red tape to get through. And I'm kind of hitting this one kind of hard because this is probably one of the most available ones that could be taken advantage of. I'll give a couple more. So another thing is that for GCPC cards or these type of purchases, you can actually shape these opportunities. You can go to these units and like tell them this, right? Because many times they forget or they don't know that they can buy stuff on a credit card. So a lot of times a part of the challenge of selling to the government is actually just communication, meaning I'm Troy, I sell office supplies. I know that they use office supplies, right? Because they have an office. So I need to just go in there and just try to figure out where they're getting their office supplies from and ask them and see if I can sell it to them. Something as simple as that. So that's the government purchase card. That's one of the low-hanging fruit. So another of the low-hanging fruit is purchase orders. Purchase orders are generally issued on a fixed price basis. And once again, these are for supplies and services as well. All of these, are for supplies and services. This is probably one of the most common orders you'll receive from the government, at least operating under FAR Part 13, you will. And so once again, offer acceptance, you're serving a product that the government wants, they want to buy it, they exchange money, and there you have it. Purchase orders are pretty simple. They outline everything that's involved with the procurement, even if you're offering prompt payment discount terms. For example, the standard payment terms in government contracting is net 30, meaning that the government is supposed to pay the bill within 30 days of submission of the invoice. You may say, well, yes, it's net 30, but if the government pays within 10 days, I'll give the government a 2% discount or a 1% discount. So it would be like net 30, and then it's whatever 10. But that's what that's saying when we're talking about prompt payment discounts and things like that. To that point, you may want to consider, if you're truly bidding on contracts, and this is kind of what you're in the game, you're like, I'm in the game, Troy, I'm in the game, Sirena, and I'm going to be in the game. And so, well, one thing I would submit to you is that over time, start using your discount terms or even like delivery, mess around with that. Because if you can offer a prompt payment discount term, that might be the thing that can help you win in a competition, because all things being equal, well, you give a better discount term. Okay, that's the edge that you needed for me to say, okay, I'm going to award to this company because we may save some money, right? And many times the government may not pay on time. So you may end up not having to pay that extra anyway, right? So you just pay the net 30 and go about your business. But I would keep that in mind. That's just a little tip there, that it's a small thing, but once again, government contract is like football. It's like a game of inches, because we're talking competition here. Just imagine everybody on the line. Imagine if all of us was in the same industry. Well, that's a huge amount of competition. So, and I'm sure many of us are really good at what we do. And so that means that the discriminators between companies become very small. There are not many of them. And so therefore, you need to have some discriminators, or what they would call lockouts, that make you look good and make your competitors look not so good in the competition. I'm not saying to trash anyone. I'm just saying that you pump up your information or you offer terms that it's hard to not want that deal, right? You're like, man, I love those terms of that deal. They're way better than me dealing with this other company. All right, so that's purchase orders. And Sirena, stop me, please, if I need to stop for questions or anything in the middle. Otherwise,
You're good. I'm writing down a couple things. So when you're done these slides, we're going to have some good tennis ball happening.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. So now we're talking about BPAs. So these are low hanging fruit. And so we're actually halfway through the through the low hanging fruit. So a BPA is a simplified, it's kind of like almost like a charge account, except there's no exchange of anything. Like, so the way that BPAs happen is that the government, I'm gonna keep using office supplies because it's easy to understand. So the government, buys pens, pencils, papers, all of that stuff, right? And they know that they can get it from local vendors, and they want to spend their money locally. So what they do is they go out and set up an agreement with, a minimum of 3 companies. It could be 10 companies. You could have a BPA for like, I've managed BPAs with like 10 vendors, which I don't know why we did that, but we did it. So, but like, let's say you have 5 vendors who all get a blanket purchase agreement. Okay, what that means is that you have offered terms to the government for the government to buy their office supplies from your company. You give them the prices of the pens, pencils, and paper. You give them the delivery terms. I'll deliver the items within 14 days after your order. And, and whatever else, whatever other information, right, is submitted back in that quote. So what happens is the government sets up an agreement with each of the 5 companies based on what they submitted back. So basically what this is saying is that everybody has been vetted, has been pre-vetted. I know what your terms are. I kind of have an understanding of, well, I know you can provide what I want, right? And so now what happens is whenever the government needs the items, they send a request for a quote to the 5 BPA holders. They don't like post it because they don't need to, because they have an existing contract. So in government contracting, before you post stuff, you're supposed to see if there's an existing contract first. So many times we don't talk about this in classes or, social content, social media marketing videos and things like that, because it's like it's not as important, I guess, but it's kind of important in the sense that, if you understand how these things work, it's the knowledge of the process is really what gets you ahead. It's like the little bitty jewels of knowledge. So once again, 5 companies get a BPA agreement. We send out an RFQ to each of the companies. They send back their quote. One company says it's going to cost this, going to cost that, going to cost this. Me as the contracting officer, I look at the quotes and it's basically going to be lowest price wins, basically. Long as everyone is technical and didn't change anything from the agreement, right? If they're quoting back what I want, I'm pretty much going to go with the lowest price. And that kind of happens. And then maybe you rotate, like if you do it again, maybe if one vendor wins again 2 times in a row, maybe like, well, you just got an award, and because maybe everyone has to get one or something like that. So I don't want to get too deep in this, but I do want to kind of, explain this information. So that's what a BPA is. Once again, this is low hanging fruit. And the reason why it's easily accessible is because really you don't have an agreement or a contract, rather. You just have a loose agreement. And so this is something that you can kind of walk in the door and try to set up on your own, just like the credit card. So if you notice in the themes, like credit card, BPA, you actually many times will have to be the one to initiate these type of procurements because the government just not thinking about them, right? You get this insight from people like me and Sirena, and then then you go and tell the government. They're like, huh? And it's like, yeah. And the reason why is because a lot of the government workforce is younger these days, so they may not be as aware, or they may be skittish and not want to use some of those tools. And so sometimes we as vendors, we have to remind them that, hey, you have this acquisition method that could be used. Why are you putting this thing over here and making it so difficult when you could be buying this on a credit card? And we all could be happy. Like, you could be happy because you'll get what you want and you'll get it quick. I'll be happy because I'm selling you something and I'm getting paid right off the rip. So as you swipe that card, right? So it's a very quick transaction. Okay, so Imprest funds and third-party drafts. So these are kind of combined. So these are less common. You won't really see these as often. These are really To be quite honest with you, this is primarily what was used before the credit card came along. So if you think back to the old school days when we all used to use checks and stuff, somewhat, we maybe still use it here and there, maybe for work around the house and like, people come to the yard and stuff. But generally speaking, most people don't use checks anymore. But this is kind of what that is. The Imprest fund is kind of like a set fund, has like a $500 max. And of course, when we talk about these max values as well, these values can also be raised slightly based on the organization, right? The organizational leader, the financial leader or contract leader can raise a limit. Like instead of 500, they could say, okay, it's 1,000 for this organization, but it has to be justified, right? The point being here is that any transaction up to $500, the individual can go and do an Imprest fund. Basically, they have the money in the account. So whenever they buy something, it's like they're taking it out of their account, almost like a debit card in that case. And the third party draft is authorized by like the financial organization, the financial element of the organization. It's kind of the same thing, slightly different, but the value here is 2,500. So I don't want to waste a lot of time on these because most likely you won't see these, but they are part of the low hanging fruit of FAR Part 13. So you'll know that, well, you'll know about these. So if you ever hear about them, you have the background. And then the last.
So was that awesome or what? I mean, I do believe that there were some nuggets in there for you. And I would love to know what your greatest takeaway from today's video was. So go into the comments and just let me know one takeaway from today's video, okay? And then also check the description box because we have some goodies there for you, some things to help you learn more about doing business with the government without writing proposals. That's in the description box, okay? And then lastly, like and hit that notification bell so that you'll be the first to know when we drop a new video, okay? I believe you're already subscribed, so that's a good start too, all right? So thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, let's go get it.